Welcome everyone to our session today on scaling smarter with AI-driven discovery, paid media, and measurement. My name is Charlene. I'm the founder of the agency, and I will be your host and moderator today. I'm joined by two incredible individuals here. I'm Chris Andrew, CEO of Scrunch AI, literally leading the front on LMO AI first buyer journeys, and then Ryan Koonce, CEO of Attribution, strong measurement partner. And so today we're going to be diving into massive shifts we're seeing impacting brands and marketers today with the rise of AI and traffic moving towards the LLMs. Something that's top of mind for many brands is how do we adapt? How do we get our brands to show up in these new platforms? And as performance advertisers, which many of our listeners are seeing this already, customer acquisition costs are rising, platforms are becoming more fragmented, channels we've invested in just a year ago are not going to be delivering the same kind of growth outcomes that we're used to expecting. And so we're rethinking how we're investing our marketing dollars today. And finally, with so much noise, how do we actually measure what actually matters? At the agency, these are three of some of the biggest challenges we see every day, which is why I'm so excited to have both Chris and Ryan here today talk about all this. Super excited to dive in, and thank you both for joining us. To kick off our conversation, I'd love to have Chris and Ryan do a quick intro. Chris, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Charlene, thanks for having us, for pulling a great forum together. I'm Chris Andrew, CEO and co-founder for Scrunch. We started the company a couple of years ago with a very simple belief that the average buyer journey is going to massively change because it was impacting us on the consumer side. Started to realize that all of the external information in the world was going into how brands were being represented, because the brand's representation is being brokered by a GPT window or now a Google AI overview instead of the human visiting the website. So our observation was humans were outsourcing browsing, and we never really wanted to maybe browse the web in the first place. We wanted answers, and that's what AI is doing. So now we're moving into a shift where really the entire customer journey is going to be about learning to market to technology. I think we've spent a decade as an industry kind of thinking about architecting the perfect MarTech stack, but now it's actually an AI agent retrieving information on behalf of a consumer. How do we think about serving the right form of content to the technology that is working on behalf of us? So as a team, we've been building over the last 2 years. We love working with our agency partners. The thinking is really, what does an AI-first customer experience platform look like? And thrilled to be chatting with you and Ryan about that today.
Amazing. Yeah, super exciting stuff. Thank you so much. So excited to dig in. Ryan, I'll kick it off to you next.
Yeah, thanks. Excited to be here as well. So I'm Ryan Koonce. I'm the CEO at Attribution. And we, many years ago, took the position that fundamentally companies weren't able to calculate the return on ad spend and the work that they're doing in marketing, and built a platform to do that on top of accurate, reliable, consistent, accessible data. And to Chris's point, today we're starting to see a lot more of those visits and a lot more of those touches come from the LLMs. Doing our best to make sense of it all so that companies can make smart budgeting decisions.
Something that's top of mind for so many of us marketers today. And I'm Charlene, founder of the agency, formerly at Google. So worked with a lot of B2B brands, built hundreds of companies, managed over $250 million in ads. So really got that front row seat, just being able to work across so many verticals, seeing how that's evolved over the years, even through COVID, if you guys remember. And so, what working inside of the system taught me was really just being able to pivot quickly and pattern recognition. I always say, I don't know all the answers. What I love most about this space is just how quickly it moves, being able to learn and solve these really exciting problems together. I'm just so excited to share space with both of you and learn alongside. With that, we'll love to get into some of our conversations. It's going to be a meeting one. Chris, I'd love to start with you first and just talk about the shift of the consumer into discovery. We've seen how fast it's changed, right? 50% of traditional searches are likely moving away, as Gartner projects, by 2028, likely a lot sooner. How do you see the consumer experience evolving, and how can brands start to think about adapting?
Yeah, what I love about that stat is Gartner came out and said, hey, 50% of Google search traffic is going to go away over the next 3 years. And I think Google was a little caught off guard for a period of time. But what's happened is that shift already occurred because Google chose to accelerate it. So more than 50% of web search in the US today starts with an AI-generated answer. And I don't think most people have fully accepted that fact. Now, Why did that jump so quickly? It's because Google is choosing to give an AI overview for the vast majority of the questions being asked. So the same behavior happens when we do kind of customer and user interviews. I love the folks that are like, I've never used AI search before, but I love that Google's just answering the question for me now. Okay, pause for a second. How do you think Google's answering the question? Well, the Gemini bot is literally retrieving information off of websites so you don't have to visit websites. So the shift in that stat was Gartner said, hey, this is going to happen. And Google was like, okay, it's happening. We better participate. And so Google's still the largest player in AI search. GPT gets all the attention, maybe as it should. It's kind of paved the way, but Google accelerated the shift. And so when we think about the shift in the customer journey, what I'm observing is that humans are habituating to AI search. For better or worse, like we should put that aside, consumers move towards simplicity. I get an answer when I ask a question in Google, in Perplexity, in GPT, in Meta, and the like. And I think the mindset that our customers are starting to accept is, one, that means my brand is not what I say it is. My brand is what GPT and Google says it is. Where is it pulling from? Two, that means that my website's most important visitor is no longer a human. It's an AI agent working on behalf of a human. And let's not like complicate what that means. Today, the AI agents are very elementary. These are crawlers sent by GPT to scrape a website and answer a question. They are doing it in real time. We're tracking it with all of our customers. I'm seeing that for very modern brands, the number of AI visitors to a website can be higher than the number of human visitors. And they arrive with very clear intent. They're asking a question on behalf of a human, and they want to get the answer back. And I think that intent is only going to get clearer. The shift that we've seen in the customer journey is massively underway. It happened faster than I honestly would have thought it would happen. And I think from a performance marketing perspective, from a commerce perspective, we're still at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what does the checkout experience look like? What does the paid component of this look like? I think all of that's going to come really quickly in the quarters to arrive here, but the top of funnel discovery shifted faster, than I would have thought it would. So that's how we're tracking and thinking about the customer journey.
I love that. And even just speaking to AI being mostly the customer now, over 50%, like you mentioned, the top of funnel piece that you just described, traditionally as marketers, we think about this funnel, top of funnel, moving to middle and bottom, but it sounds or seems like it's starting to collapse. And so, Ryan, I'm actually curious from your perspective, right? How might brands think about attribution or measurement when these journeys are collapsing?
Yeah, well, let's not forget that Google is still the greatest business ever invented in the history of the world. So, they're smart and they recognize that AI search is something that people just were clamoring for, but mostly it's for the things that you just kind of needed an answer for anyway, right? So it's like, oh, do I really have to go 4 pages deep in some blog to figure out, X, Y, or Z? And, they've largely eliminated a lot of that, which is amazing. But I'll tell you what, if you search for best boots on Google, there's no AI search. There's a bunch of links. And I think what Google has figured out is that just decreasing that friction in the places that there was friction before makes all the other searches better for them, right? Google's going to always optimize at their margin. And so from a measurement perspective, I would bet anyone any amount of money that the Google profit machine doesn't go away. It just transforms. And so there's a component to that, which is advertisers paying for clicks or links or transactions or views or whatever the mechanism is. And marketers are still going to have to measure those things. And Google's going to still have to charge for those things. And as a result, you're going to have to measure it, right? And so that's where we come in. We think about, well, most buyer journeys aren't in just one channel. They have many touches. And so for all the different ways that companies are selling their advertising, we want to be able to measure it and we want to be able to justify it. And that's where, sort of our tool plays a part.
Yeah, I think just if I can add to what Ryan was saying there, I think we've seen this pattern and we've seen Google retain the most valuable piece time after time. Like, let's just look at Meta. Over the last decade, they've worked really hard to try to get checkout and purchase in-app, and consumers have shown they kind of want to go back to Google and do a branded experience to kind of make the purchase. And so I'm really curious. GPT is losing money hand over fist to build consumer trust and attract attention. We know they want the purchase experience to be in the feed, whether that's the Shopify pilots of buying directly in ChatGPT. Again, Many different new players have tried to control that purchase experience, and Google has emerged on top time and time again. I don't know how it will play out this time, but I expect Google's not going to lose it overnight, as Ryan shared.
Yeah.
Well, but keep in mind, Sam Altman did say something about moving the experience and the payment point to the point of purchase. So when you think about the original Yahoo banner CPM buy that largely no longer exists, going into a motion where you're paying for clicks, going into a motion where maybe every single transaction looks like an affiliate transaction, right? And so the way to leapfrog the current state where you're optimizing on the margin, right? Because remember, we send all our information back to Google and Facebook about our conversions. And so they're literally able to optimize to the point of pain that we're willing to accept in real time. And so if you change the equation and you say, no, you can advertise all you want, but I'm only going to pay for the conversion as an advertiser, it changes the whole equation. And it changes the equation for Google and Facebook also. So if somebody like ChatGPT or Perplexity or, somebody else says, hey, you know what, we're going to flip the thing on its head, that might be the way to do it.
Yeah, you make a really good point. We pay for conversions. The conversation around what KPIs should we track or care about, I think that's a ever-evolving thing. And Chris, you mentioned it. We don't get paid off of website views. We get paid off of conversions. And so I'm curious, Ryan or Chris, actually, what are some of the KPIs or metrics marketers can think about in the context of this whole journey collapsing?
Yeah. I'll try to start here. I think on the metrics that matter, the metrics that fuel every business are revenue and retention. And I think the early glimmers that I would be paying attention to, regardless of the type of company I'm in, is that we're seeing that visitors that arrive from an AI search referral tend to arrive with really high intent. I think as Ryan said, you collapse the 4 levels of information sourcing and you've got the context. And that's GPT's window of opportunity, right? Correct. If I go to Google and just say best boots, they're going to get me to buy boots like immediately. They're not going to have me go, read 15 different blogs or talk about boot structure. They're trying to get you to purchase. The question is when someone arrives via a ChatGPT link, they're ready to transact. And so as they are getting to that point of being ready to transact, can these models shift the purchase behavior, which has historically been to go to an Amazon or go to a Google or go to a branded site and actually participate in that commerce layer? I'm not an expert in it, but I know what I'm seeing is that the top of funnel is collapsing. The intent is higher. People tend to convert at 2 to 5x higher coming from an AI search referral visitor. And again, this is with really no paid component yet in the LLM ecosystem. So when I'm talking to companies, it's like, the Monday.com stock crashes because their search traffic is declining and their revenue is growing. I think that's kind of a backwards response from the market. And there's a bunch of other contributing factors in there. But I think we'll stop paying attention to the vanity metrics of number of arbitrary site visitors and care more and more about their conversion, the quality, and the intent. But I'm not as deep on the performance marketing side as either of you. And Charlene, you should answer your own question, given all the context from Google and your client base as well. But we can pass it to Ryan first.
I will say, at the end of the day, it's not just about the click or the visit. It's about what was the intent, to your point, and did I mess it up as a marketer or not? A cat food ad on a dog food landing page isn't going to convert, and you'd be shocked how often companies make simple mistakes around just basic orchestration of their campaigns. So, if you don't have great implementation, you don't have great data, things tend to fall apart and you can't optimize. But I do know that fundamentally, as people have more intent, as those conversion rates come up, they compound, right? If I can get somebody to that landing page, or if I can get somebody into that purchase funnel, that isn't just window shopping, right? They're sort of already interested in a thing like that because it's been, provided to them in a way that wasn't available before. Then yeah, the conversion rates overall are going to go up, and we're going to start to see sort of net conversion rates go up. Now, what does that mean from a buyer's perspective? It probably means I'm willing to spend more to get those customers there. And then how do you reconcile those things? And those are the kinds of things we're starting to think about.
I agree with you. The intent piece is so important. And I think the larger piece of this conversation too is we're all trying to figure out what to measure. Key point here is there's a need to evolve the KPIs and measurement framework to understand what really matters. Even the things in referral traffic that come from AI, those might have more intent. I work with a lot of B2B customers, same concept. There's this idea of marketing teams wanting, leads, the sales need a different quality of leads, or, 10K buyer, 100K buyer, there's different intent and value to these leads. So I think it's an interesting conversation around measurement and just being aware that, driving clicks may not be everything, looking at the results.
And remember, like, if you think about the big difference between, a Facebook ad and a Google ad, one is a lot more intentful. I'm searching for something on Google and I need that thing. In Facebook, we get a little bit more of the branding experience. Like, hey, there's a thing that exists that you didn't know you need, but you do. And so I still haven't seen where the LLMs have sort of like crossed that gap, right? I mean, definitely if we're asking for something in a chat GPT, we're kind of like interested in it and we want to know more, right? But we're not able to say, hey, but tell me the other three things that I didn't think I needed that I should look at, I should buy. And so, I mean, we're in the first inning of the game and, it's already pretty amazing.
Yeah, I would add to that. I've been, paying close attention to what integrations and partners the LLMs are prioritizing. And if you think about the almost native level integrations now with a Gmail, with a calendar from a GPT, they're starting to crack into more of that potential intent of like intent before I know it, of like, oh, you're taking this trip, you're going to need a plane ticket. You're taking this, you're going to need that. And so I'm curious where, these companies are not dumb. They're going to draw the line on protecting their own data, because Ryan's point on like the difference in intent from Google to Facebook is still significant, but they're both massive players in this performance kind of game. GPT is trying to crack into that. And the more time they can accrue in platform with the more data, the more they're going to crack into that piece. I think the most alarming stat I've seen on this is like, and I'll get the exact number wrong, but it's something like 27 minutes of daily usage for like an average GPT user. Like that's a lot of time in app with a lot of, and you saw the distribution of what people are using AI for, everything from, search to scientific research to role play, like the table breakdown that GPT released. There's a lot of information in there that's going to crack into some of those commerce equations. But as Ryan said, we're in inning one, and there's a conflict in their desire to not advertise to their customer base, which I know Sam Altman has highlighted on occasion. Like, we don't want to do paid ads. Let's see what they do, to monetize.
Yeah, I know. I've been watching that space pretty closely. I've noticed a lot of their recent hires have advertising backgrounds. So be curious to see how they, position ChatGPT with them. Taking a step back, this idea of showing up in LLMs, getting brands to get discovered. Chris, how can brands today better position themselves using Scrunch or the tools out there?
Yeah, it starts with an understanding of how you're showing up. And then it starts with a deep understanding of traditional SEO best practices. I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion, especially on social, about like what's happening in AI search and how you quote unquote influence it. Many of the traditional SEO best practices are the right foundational starting point. What is the intent of your consumer? Do you have content that matches that intent? Is the content accessible to the model? Some very basic things in there. If you have JavaScript heavy websites, multimedia heavy websites, when the AI model is trying to retrieve information about your product and service, it's looking for language. Like the secret is in the name. Large language models want language. They're trying, in the future, they'll get better and better at converting multimedia at the point of search. What are they going to convert it into? Language. Make it easier. Give the model what it is looking for so that you are considered. I would be very wary of folks that like guarantee your lift in presence or tell you how to trick the models. These models are smart. They're going to get smarter. You don't want to be on the wrong side of kind of doing that. I think you want a principled approach to monitor how you show up, a thoughtful content strategy with awareness that a primary browser of your content for the top of funnel is an AI agent working on behalf of humans. So FAQs, glossaries, well-structured content that is leaning away from keyword stuffing, which was already the shift that was starting to happen in the Google ecosystem, more towards mapping the intent of the buyer to the content that you need is directionally the right set of things to do. The other component I'd put in there is more than ever, the broader network of how your brand is represented is important. So in the past, you could show up first in Google and they would click on your website. Now, regardless GPT wants to look at multiple sources. So if I'm trying to look at a large brand, it's going to go look at user-generated content on a Reddit. It's going to go look at a few blogs. It's going to go look at a competitor site to present a less biased view of your product or solution. So we encourage companies to get a really deep understanding of, well, what are the websites that the model's using to answer questions that I care about? Am I represented on those websites? Is it accurate? That's the second piece. And then the third component, which we've been delivering with our enterprise customers, is our focus on actually delivering optimized content to agents as they try to retrieve it. So we think of this as our agent experience platform, which is, look, ChatGPT is on your website. Your website has a video, a screenshot, and 5 drop downs for a human. Good luck. The AI agent's like, there's nothing on this page for me. We've built some infrastructure that delivers a version of that page so the agent gets what it needs as it's trying to answer the question. Think of it like the intent of the page is to educate on the capability. A human watches a video, the AI agent gets optimized text to answer the question. So I really think of that as 3 components in terms of getting incorporated into the consideration set so that you show up.
And I think, the website piece, right? Optimizing for both means if they want to, they can still go on the website and read all the stuff. But the truth of the matter is a lot of people don't want to, right? They're going into the LLMs and ChatGPT, give me the answer, give me your recommendation based on context. And I think that's a really key point. I thought it was really funny for the listeners who don't know. Chris or Kevin from your team posted recently, traditionally in SEO, there's that keyword stuffing that you mentioned. For Google, you're looking for a chicken soup recipe and you can literally do chicken 60 times and you show up. But how useful is that for the user who's looking for the recipe? And so with ChatGPTs and these large language models, they're looking for context and they're giving you the answer. And the other layer to that piece, which is really interesting, if us 3 search for the same thing, want to buy a running shoe, we're probably going to get different results based on our own user persona context.
I actually think that within, I'll make it, we'll say a long time, within 5 years, most UX goes away. Like there's no need for me to go to Expedia or Airbnb or anywhere really, because I've told my agent to go get me some options and the agent's going to frame those options in a way that's desirable to me in a page. And I'm going to pick something and then the agent's going to go out in the requisite places and purchase those things for me. Right. So we're right on the front edge of this. And I think, Chris, what you're doing is so interesting because I think it's just the first step in creating that special page for the agent. I think what we ultimately end up with is literally just a bunch of endpoints where agents can interact and do all the things that we waste our time doing today. And so, again, first inning, but you get to this place where now, how do I, in our case, we're thinking about, well, how do we measure those things, right? How do we make sure that, we are out there tracking what's Google's going to end up charging us for, because they're going to find a way to charge us for that. Okay. And so, from our perspective, it's a really interesting, stepping stone.
Yeah, I think, your point, I've been saying this of like, I think we're going to move to a largely non-visual internet. And I think it's going to be better.
Thank God.
Right? There was a stat that came out when GPT released Operator. It was like self-congratulatory. Hey, Operator can do 68% of tasks on the top 5,000 websites. Cool. Footnote, humans can complete 72% of tasks on the top 5,000 websites. Why? These websites are insane. We've been spending 20 years trying to introduce new design standards, satisfy Google, satisfy N number of different players that all have complicated incentives. To Ryan's point, I think, and Charlene, your core point of we're all going to get different answers. I believe LLMs are going to send agents with specific memory-based intent to websites, and websites, quote in quotes, are going to dynamically create non-visual components to get the answer and checkout experience to the consumer. It's not going to happen overnight, but I believe the modern CMS will be non-visual. The modern CMS for the internet is going to be about AI consuming content, and 100% believe that's where we're going. Bad at predictions. I'm not going to guess the year it will occur, because honestly, the shift to AI search is happening faster than I thought, despite in the category 2 years is Ryan's answer. We'll tweet it out and keep him accountable.
Well, and then let's take it to the next level, because we think, in measurement, we do a lot with, particularly with Twilio segment CDP, we think a lot about identity resolution and how do you bind anonymous and known journeys into conversions and look at lifetime value back to cost of acquisition, right? So now if you have an agent that's representing you, what's the identity of that agent? How do you do identity resolution on an agent? And how do you do it across many LLMs? And so these are all things that are evolving in real time where you might say, I don't want to be attached to that conversion. And I have an agent running around, right, doing the research for me. But at the end of the day, if you buy something, it's your credit card, it's your purchase, it's your identity, probably. And so, I think, this is evolving pretty fast. But at the end of the day, in order to be a smart marketer, in order to make sure that you're spending money in the right places, you have to take all these things into account.
Yeah, it's wild how quickly it's moving. On the topic of measurement, so much is evolving. The consumer journey is evolving. We're seeing more from AI. There's so many touch points. I'd love to dig a little bit more into your world, Ryan. How might these marketing teams think about attribution as these consumer journeys are evolving? I think you had a really good framework for measurement. Would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and remember, we're talking about this future state that's happening really fast. But today, the vast majority of spend is still on Google and Facebook, right? And so when you think about somebody's buyer journey, there's a non-zero chance that they've interacted with both Facebook and Google before they purchase something, or LinkedIn and Google, or Reddit and Google, right? Google's usually in there somewhere. And so fundamentally, we think you have to have 4 things to do measurement well today. So the first thing is cost at the user level. So we talked about that identity resolution. How do we bind these anonymous touches to a conversion and track the lifetime value back to the cost of acquisition, not only at the user level, but down to the ad level for that user, okay? And so that's something that generally is pretty hard and companies don't do well. The second thing is full data auditability. So if you're using Google Analytics, you're flying blind, it's a black box, it usually doesn't work. And so how do you create an environment where you can see every touch on the path to conversion and you can audit the data that you have? And that's really important. So that's the second thing. The third thing is model customization. We joke a lot that, you shouldn't talk about religion or politics or attribution at dinner. If I ask 9 marketers, what the right attribution model is, I'll get 27 answers. And so in our world, we say, listen, every business is a little bit different. A company that's B2B, that's optimizing for a free trial start, that's going to have a long tail of revenue, is going to measure things differently than a B2C company that's an e-commerce brand that's focused on first purchase. And so we're really, really concerned about providing the marketer with flexibility to see the data the way they need to see it. And most marketers have never seen accurate multi-touch attribution. So when they do, a light bulb goes off. And then the final thing is data portability. I can't tell you the number of data teams I've seen try to build an attribution pipeline using Fivetran or Google Conversion API or Facebook Conversion APIs, and then they spend a bunch of money and a bunch of time and none of it adds up. And there's a reason for that, because it actually doesn't add up. And so we take all the data that we collect, that we format and structure, drop it into your warehouse and let your data team do its thing. And so if you have those things, which most companies don't, then you can measure what you can measure, and then you can almost always save today 20 to 30% of your ad spend because you're wasting it and you don't know where. And that's not actually at the channel level, that's actually at the ad set level or at the ad level. So if I have one ad that's outperforming another, on average, it might look okay. But if you get rid of the bad one, you double down on the good one, it compounds itself. And so those are the kinds of things that we're focused on in the market today.
Super interesting. Yeah. I work a lot of advertisers spending lower millions to even 20, 40 million. And Ryan, we actually had a shared client, ClickUp, who actually just reached over 300 million in ARR, which is crazy.
And that's a great example of a business that has, an optimization path for buying money to get people into the funnel to do a thing, and then they're going to make money over time. Well, if you can't take that lifetime value of the customer and back it into the cost of acquisition, it's really, really hard to say we can keep backing up the truck, because it's going to back out. It just not necessarily in the first month, right? And so that's where we've had a lot of success with companies like that.
Yeah, I love that. The conversation that I'm trying to inspire a lot of my marketers, many of them don't work with these more complex attribution models. The example, let's just say today we are investing in both Google and Meta, and we're paying for that click. On a larger scale with attribution, how do we better understand the real ROAS versus the individual that we might not be aware of?
Well, and what we've seen more recently is that there's a train wreck of multi-touch attribution companies that didn't do it right. And a multitude of them. And so now a lot of companies are moving into MMM, and marketers are thinking about MMM. MMM is probabilistic, and it won't let you optimize at the ad level. It certainly doesn't let you optimize at the user level, right? And so the reason that's happening is because there's been so much dysfunction in trying to make it work with Google or trying to make it work with other tools that it's like, fine, we're just going to go probabilistic. Well, it gets even better than that, because most of these probabilistic models won't give you the propensity score on what they're providing. And it's probably as good as flipping a coin, right? And so, I think we've seen the pendulum shift probably in the wrong direction on the probabilistic side. And hopefully, it starts to swing back and we can start to get back to those 4 principles I talked about before.
Yeah. We've talked a lot today. I want to give it Chris, Ryan, do you guys have any questions for me?
Why don't you tell us why the agency is awesome and everyone should work with you? Because we know that's true.
You guys are so sweet. Agency, the vision here is we really are a growth partner to high growth brands, right? Given a lot of the experience and exposure that we have and great partners like both of you, we're really, tapped in and interested in evolving with the space and helping our clients evolve, right? Similar to the things that we're seeing in the space, measurement, strategy, how do we move towards this future adaptation? We're very much on that pulse alongside partners like you and well positioned to help our brands evolve.
I saw a question pop up from one of the participants. Ryan, put you on the spot for it, given you're a little bit more tightly aligned with pay. It looks like the question from Troy is, in the shortening of the path to purchase, where do blogs, review sites that offer expert advice fall in the AI future, especially as they earn their money via affiliate links? I think the question is just affiliate in nature. Like, what do you think the shift looks like, given they were a big top of funnel education source in the purchase flow?
I've always, I have a little bit of a negative bias towards most review sites and processes, mostly because, we've sort of evolved from, well, it's kind of like websites that are just optimized for Google SEO just to get a click, right? So a lot of the review sites now are just pay to get a review, pay to get to the top of the list. Is the review really the best review? And I think one of the things we're going to find with the LLMs is, how smart do they get? Maybe they can start to sift through the noise, read all the reviews, and like actually synthesize the underlying information and tell us what we probably need to know. And, thinking about all kinds of reviews. If you think about the reviews on Yelp, where, you get a t-shirt if you leave a review after you went to the thing, and, if you leave 3 reviews while you're standing there and you show it to them, you get the better t-shirt, right? And so like that to me isn't a great source of truth. If the LLMs can sift through that for us, I think that's amazing. I think to the extent that it becomes affiliate, it's better because we can track it. And historically what we've seen is, obviously any kind of incentivized affiliate is not as good as straight affiliate, right? But at some price is the key to all media measurement. So Google and Facebook works at some price. And the fundamental problem we see the most, which ties to affiliate as well, is imagine you spent $5 for a click on Google and $5 for a click on Facebook, same user, and you made $8, okay? Facebook's gonna go, that's amazing. You spent $5 and you made $8. And Google's going to go, that's amazing. You spent $5 and you made $8. And you're looking at your numbers and you're like, well, Google says I made a bunch of money and Facebook says a bunch of money, but in aggregate, it looks like I lost $2 and I don't get it. And so that's what we want to reconcile. And so whether it's affiliate or Google or Facebook, advertising works at some price. And the thing that we, are generally focused on is adding that cost component to the equation. So you're not just looking at the percentage of conversion that goes back to the ad networks. And then subsequently, and this ties back to affiliate, with affiliate, I know the purchase happened, but then what influenced that purchase? So many affiliate systems today are last affiliate click tracking. Well, guess what? There might have been a Facebook touch and a Google touch in that customer journey as well. Affiliate might get credit even if it wasn't the last touch. And so again, the different measurement mechanisms for that become conflating very, very quickly and very, very hard to understand if you don't have something that can break it down into its component parts.
Well said. Thank you, Chris and Ryan, for joining. We dive into so much, and there's so many more topics we can dive into. Based on a lot of the stuff that we've heard, could kind of distill it down into some key takeaways is, one, for brands, right? Really think about that AI first journey or buyer and position yourself, whether it's the content, the credibility, to make sure you are positioning yourself for that. The second was the KPI piece. So evolving your measurement framework, the KPIs to adapt with this. And then there is the measurement with so many channels, more AI journeys, more touch points, marketing funnels collapsing, all the things to make sure you're tying your measurement strategy holistically. And so with that, I just want to thank you, Chris and Ryan, again. We do these monthly. And if you guys are interested in all of us potentially helping your brand, we'll drop as well.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thanks,
Charlene.
guys.
Ryan, good to see you. Appreciate you bringing
too.
us together, Charlene.
Thank you.